Hello. Thank you for coming out to our webinar today. This is BNC CataList for new booksellers. So my name is Carol Gordon. I'm the interim director of product development here at BookNet Canada, and I'm joined today by our associate product manager for the CataList system, Vivian Liu. So before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that BookNet Canada's operations are remote, and we are broadcasting to you today from the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee First Nation peoples. We encourage you to visit the site nativeland.ca, and we'll post that link in the chat, and to learn more about the people whose land you are joining from today. Moreover, BookNet endorses the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada and supports an ongoing shift from gatekeeping to space making in the book industry. So today, we're going to be introducing some of CataList's features to help you get started using the tools that you have access to as retailers on the website. We've brought with us some of the frequently asked questions that we often hear, and we'll leave some time at the end of this session to take questions from those of you who are joining today. If you do have questions at any time during the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box at any time, and we will answer as many questions as we have time for. We'll just do that at the end of this session. If you have any technical issues during the webinar, please use the chat feature in Zoom to connect with the BookNet support team who can help you out with any questions you've got. And so with that, we can get started. Before we jump into a demonstration of some of the CataList features that we wanted to show you today, we're going to start the session off with a bit of orientation for those of you who may be completely new to book selling or who are less familiar with how the supply chain for books works in Canada. And so this can kind of help establish where CataList can fit into your processes and workflows that are relating to sourcing your books for your store. So there are a few key players that you will likely encounter or have already encountered as you set up with book selling. So, and we're going to keep this short for those of you who know it. We're not going to spend too much time on this. We're just going to give it's a brief orientation. So publishers, of course, are the people who publish the books that you want to order. So your publishers work with the authors, they edit, schedule, and produce the books. They arrange marketing and promotional activities to drive consumer interest in those books. In terms of CataList, publishers can subscribe to post their catalogs on the service so that it's easy for retailers and other book buyers to find information about forthcoming books, as well as the available backlist, all in one central location. Sales representatives in the bottom left are employed by the publishers, and their role is to help sell the books to retailers, libraries, and any other book buyers. So some of the larger companies may have internal sales teams, while other publishers will sell their books through external sales rep groups. And those will likely represent multiple publisher lines. So most publishers will have their sales contacts listed on their CataList landing pages, as well as on their own websites. So if you're just starting out, getting connected with the sales reps in your area is a really great way to start getting up-to-date information about forthcoming books, promotions, timely marketing, and publicity information. So many sales reps are using CataList as a communication tool for sharing this type of information, because CataList allows them to customize catalogs for specific buyers. They can add their own shareable notes to titles that add additional information of interest to the specific booksellers that they're selling to. So in terms of ordering books, we'll kind of move over to the right-hand side of this, this slide. Bookstore orders are submitted to you and fulfilled by distributors. So some publishers may self-distribute their own products, but most publishers, especially the small ones, will work with an external distributor to manage this part of their business. The first step in working with any distributor is setting up an account for your store with each distributor that you want to order books from. And each distributor may have their own purchasing terms, so including discounts, order minimums, promotional supports, those type of things. So if you're working with your sales reps, they can often assist you and kind of offer you some direction in terms of directing you where to forms and contacts for setting up your accounts with the distributors. So CataList does have some order creation and management tools, and Vivian's going to walk you through some of that today. And she'll show you how to identify which distributors are distributing which books so that you can manage the orders for those products appropriately. The last supply chain player kind of I want to mention here is wholesalers, kind of between the distributors and booksellers in terms of ordering. So the wholesalers also buy books directly from the distributors, but they also can resell to bookstores. So it's just another source where book buyers may purchase their books. And this may be an option if the primary distributor, for example, is out of stock on a hot title. A wholesaler may have that available for quicker shipping, but usually you'll find that the wholesalers will have lower discount terms, obviously, because they're also buying from the distributors. But just another player in the market that you might want to be aware of. And so we're going to move on from this, but if you want to refer back to any of these details, we have some of this all written up in our CataList documentation. So there's a link there on the screen, and I believe that's been dropped into the chat as well, where we have some of this information that's available for you to read at any time. You can also access it when you're in CataList by going to the help link in the top bar, navigation bar, and going to our resources for retailers. There's a whole section there with some resources that you may find interesting. So in terms of CataList, I think we're going to move on to that. I think most of our attendees here today have already set up their CataList accounts. For anyone that hasn't, you can go to the catalyst.ca site. There is a link right there to sign up for an account. Accounts are completely free for retailers, so you can go ahead and set that up. We'll usually set you up by the next day, sometimes on the same day. If you send it today, we'll get you set up today. So CataList does have, when you're there, you'll see there are some publicly available catalogs. Some of the title information is available, but most of the features that Vivian's going to walk you through today are going to require you to log in to get access to those features. And so with that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Vivian, and she's going to take you through some of the retailer features.
Thanks, Carol. Hello, this is Vivian, and let's get started by going to CataList. So this will take us to the CataList homepage, and I'll start with a very brief introduction of the site. So on CataList, publishers can post their digital catalogs for retailers, such as yourselves, to browse online. And many of the catalogs and titles, as Carol has mentioned, are available to you without you having to log in. However, when you are logged in, you will have access to a lot more data, and you'll have access to many more titles that in particular are forthcoming. You'll also be able to use our ordering and list management tools on the site. And these tools can help you keep track of any titles that you are interested in and can help facilitate meetings that you might have with any sales reps that you work with. And with that being said, let's log in so we can take a look at some of these features. And now we are logged in. So let's say that we are looking for books that we're interested in ordering for our store. There are a few ways you might go about doing this. One of those ways is that you can search for those books using the search tools that we have. They are located in the top right corner. Or you could scroll through our publisher list on the left-hand side. And you can scroll through the list to see all of the publishers that have added catalogs to the site. If you click on any of these publisher names, you will be taken to their landing page where you can see all of their catalogs. You might also receive links to specific catalogs from sales reps that you work with. And some of these catalogs may have been custom made for your store, your CataList account, so you may have to log in order to view the contents of those catalogs. Now, once you have logged into CataList, you can find a complete list of all of these catalogs that were shared with you in your My Page section of the account. So that would be located at the top when you click on the My Page link that can take you to that section of the site. For this webinar, we will take a closer look at a publisher's seasonal catalogs using the list on the left-hand side. So, for example, if we wanted to see the latest catalogs that House of Nancy Press has added to the site, for example, then we can find the publisher's name, click on it, and take a look at their seasonal catalogs here. If the publisher has sorted their catalogs by imprint, then you can use the imprint list at the top to choose which imprint's catalogs you would like to view. And so if we click on any of these catalogs, it will open the catalog, and by default, it will take you to the thumbnail view, though you could also view the catalog in a few different layouts. If you are interested in any of these titles, you can click on it for more information. And this takes you to a more detailed look of the title, and it includes a lot of bibliographic data. A lot of this data is provided to us by the publisher, and it is updated quite regularly so that we display the most up-to-date information that the publisher has shared with us. So on this page, we can see a lot of information such as the cover of the book. We can see the price. We can see the publication date, the format of the book. We can also see additional resources that the publisher has sent. We can also see the stock availability for this title. The stock availability and the additional resources here are examples of pieces of data that you have to log in order to see. Let's scroll further down. And further down, we have the description and author bio of this book, and also other useful marketing information. For any forthcoming titles, you may see another button just above these tabs. And if you click on the button, it would let you request any advanced reader copies that might be available for the forthcoming book. The button here would show up if the publisher has any of those ARCs available for you to view. Further down, we have a list of comparable titles. So these would be any titles that are related to the book that the sales rep or the publisher would have liked to add to this list. If you participate in sales data, you would see the sales history for each of these comparable titles. And that would give you a better understanding of how well these comparable titles have done in the market. Another useful piece of data that you can find on this page is information for the distributor. And so on the left-hand side, in the supply detail box, you could see who distributes this title. In this case, that would be UTP Distribution. This information is important, especially if you are creating orders on CataList. When you create an order on CataList, you can create a complete list of all the titles you wish to purchase from a specific distributor. And once you are ready to send this order to the distributor, you could simply export the list that you have created on CataList and send it on its way. Now, because the order is being sent to a specific distributor, you have to make sure that every title in the order is distributed by that company. For example, if we were to create an order that will be sent to UTP, all the titles in the order should have UTP as the distributor, such as over here, where you can see this data. I'll point out a few other places on the site where you can find this information as we walk through creating an order. So to create an order, let's say we want to create an order for this title. We would click the Order Products button and then start a new order. I would call this order something unique, such as UTP Jan 2024. And I would give it this unique name so that I can identify this order later as one that I am sending to UTP. And it will also help remind me when I'm adding titles to the order that I should only include titles that are distributed by UTP. So let's start this order. And once the order has started, the page will refresh and you will see the active order in the catalog toolbar. The order summary box will include the order name, the number of books you've added to the order, and the total cost of your order. So if we want to order copies of this book, we would simply have to enter the number of copies we would like to order in the order box, which you can find on the right-hand side. So say we want 2 copies of this book. We can navigate through the catalog using the arrow button just above the order box. And we can continue to browse through the catalog. We can enter more quantities. We can add more titles to our order. We can also do this in a few different views of the account of the order. So for example, I could go to the scrolling view of this catalog, and the scrolling view lets me see more titles on a single page. And so I can scroll through the titles, expand any of these sections to learn more about the title. I can, again, use the order box here to enter more quantities, to add this title to my order. I can do the same on the grid view. And the grid view will show you a more condensed view of all of the titles. And I'm going to scroll a little over here to this side. And again, here you can enter more quantities of these titles for your order. Now, the grid view is another area of the site where you can see who the distributor is for each of these titles. All of these columns that you see in the grid view, you can show them or you can hide them from your view. And you can set that up in the Customize Column settings. And so you can, in the custom columns, let's scroll down to the supply data options. And here we can select the Canadian supplier checkbox and we can save our selections. And so the distributor information is now in this table, and I can drag this column to anywhere I want in the grid so that it's more visible, for example. And you can refer to this column when you are adding titles to your order. I can add titles that are in another catalog to this order as well. For example, if I were to, let's go back to Anansi's landing page and open another one of their catalogs. So let's open this Groundwood Books catalog. And as you can see, the order is still active and I can still see the information for it in the toolbar. And if I click into any of these titles, I can again add this title to this order. Again, as you are moving to different catalogs, you should also make sure that the distributor is still UTP so that I am only adding titles distributed by UTP to this order. Once you have added all the titles that you want to your order, you could review your order by clicking the order name inside the summary box, or you could go to the My Orders section. And let's click on that link. And that will take you to a page where you could view all of the orders that you've created in your account. So let's click on the order we created to take a look. In the order details, you can see all of the titles that you've added to your order. And you can also adjust the number of copies that you're ordering for each of these titles. So you could increase them. If you want, you could also remove a title completely from your order by removing the quantity entirely. So if you clear the box and if you refresh the page, then this title will be removed from your order. Let's give it another quantity here. All right, so let's say that you've reviewed your order and you are ready to send this order to your distributor or to your sales rep. There are a few different workflows that you might follow from this point on, and I will run through those workflows now. So one option is that you might send your order directly to the distributor. If that's the case, you can export your order. So click the Export Order button, and then you can export your order as an Excel or a CSV file. And once you have saved the file to your computer, you could send it to your distributor or your sales rep. The other thing about having exported your file to a spreadsheet is that it will include all of these columns that you see here, including, most importantly, the ISBN column. You can copy and paste the ISBNs from your export and paste them into, and you can add them to whatever system you are using for your store's inventory. For example, if you are using Shopify or any other online store tool, you could simply copy and paste the ISBNs into your system so that you have them there. The other workflow, actually, let's continue over here for just another second with the export order. Now, if you have a WordStock account, you can connect your WordStock account to your CataList account. So once you have set up that connection between your POS and CataList, you will have another option here to export your order as a WordStock file. And once you have exported that file, you can import the file right into your WordStock system. All right, so now let's talk about another workflow that you might follow. And this one you might be able to use if you are working directly with a sales rep who is also on CataList. So for example, if you are working in a promotional catalog for independent booksellers and you are ordering titles from this catalog and you are creating this order and you finalized your order, your sales rep might prefer that you send the order directly to them instead of to the distributor. If that is the case, you can submit your order to your sales rep directly in CataList. And you would do that by clicking the Submit Order button. And then you can find your sales rep by entering their name in the search box. So for example, if I start typing in a sales rep's name, results will show up and I can select the right sales rep, and then I can send the order to that sales rep. And once it has been sent, the sales rep will receive a notification about it, and they'll be able to review the order once they have signed into their own CataList account. Now, of course, remember to communicate with your sales rep and your distributor contacts to confirm which workflow they would prefer to use. Now I'm going to cancel. So that is how you can start an order and send the order to your distributor or to your sales rep. Now I'm going to return to CataList's homepage. So aside from managing your orders on CataList, you can also create lists of books that you are interested in. For example, if you want to create a list of books that you might order annually for a seasonal event, such as Valentine's Day, you can create a list of books for that. If you want to keep track of books that have done particularly well at your store, and you want that list of books to be readily available so that you can reorder them whenever you want in the future, you can create a list for that as well. Now, on CataList, we call these custom catalogs. Custom catalogs are usually created by sales reps, but as a retailer, when you are logged in, you can also create these lists as well for your own references, for whatever purposes you have. And let's create one as an example. So let's say we want to create a list of books that are related to Valentine's Day. One way for us to get started is maybe we actually want to see if there are any existing custom catalogs that we can look through that are similar in theme. So you can search for catalogs by name using our search tools. So up at the top, we can switch our search from looking for all products to looking for catalogs. And so here we could search for any catalogs that might have the word Valentine's Day in the title, in the name of the catalog. So let's type in Valentine's Day and press enter. And of course, I've misspelled Valentine's. Valentine's Day. Okay, now we have some results. There are a few catalogs, which is enough for us to get started. So we can take a look at this Valentine's Day catalog that LPG has kindly put together. And we can take a look at these titles to see if they are what we want for our store. Of course, maybe not all of the titles are what you would like to save for your own list. For example, maybe you want your Valentine's Day list to include just Canadian authors. If that's the case, you can identify Canadian authors on CataList by the maple leaf icon that shows up next to each of the author names. So any author name that has a little maple leaf next to it is a Canadian author. So any titles that you'd like to save, you can always just select the checkbox next to it, and this will pop up a little quick actions tool that we will get to in a minute. So let's continue selecting titles that we want for our list. And I can go on, but let's stick with these 5 for now. And we can click the copy button in the quick actions box here, and we can create a new custom catalog for our own account. So we can click create a catalog and then give it a name. So let's call this Valentine's Day. And these are Canadian titles, so maybe I'll also add Canadian. So that would be our title for our list. Now you can set your custom catalog as either private or collaborative. A private custom catalog means that only you and any other account managers in your CataList account will be able to see the catalog and add or remove titles that are in it. If you make your custom catalog collaborative, this means that anyone in your CataList account will be able to see the catalog. They'll be able to see the list and they can add or remove titles from it. This will be particularly useful if you are working with your other staff members, for example, to create a book list for your newsletter or for an in-store promotion, for example. So maybe you are working with your other colleagues to build this list and you want them to see the list so they could add their own suggestions to the list as well. Let's make this list a collaborative one and create catalog. Once the catalog has been created, you can click on the link to view your new list. And since it is a list that you created yourself, you can delete any of the titles that are in this list. So if I want, I could remove one of these titles, or I could move one of these titles to another list that I have access to edit, but we haven't created any yet, so this area is blank. Let's cancel that. All right. So we have created our catalog. All right. And I need a drink of water. Sorry, everyone. So what if you already have a list of ISBNs saved somewhere else, and now you want to add those ISBNs to CataList? So you can add that list to an existing list that you've created, such as this one, and you could do that by going to the Edit Catalog tool and clicking the Edit Info option. So once you've done that, you can edit any of the information that you have set up for your catalog, for your list. And then in the ISBN box, this is where you will paste in those ISBNs that you have saved elsewhere that you want to add to your catalog. So I'm going to copy a list of ISBNs, and you can paste it in here. But maybe you want to create a new catalog using those ISBNs. You can also do that in the My Page section. So let's click on My Page and go to Catalog Creation. And then you can click New Custom Catalog so that you can create a new catalog. And so here is where I will, for example, paste in the list of ISBNs that I have, enter it there, and let's give it a name. I'll just call it My List for now. And then you can click Next to create this list. Now, at this point, CataList will double check to see that all of these ISBNs that you'd like to add to your catalog are in fact in our system. You might see that an ISBN is not in CataList, for example, such as the first one on this list that I've added. And when a title is not in CataList, there are a few reasons for why this might be. So one reason is that maybe the publisher just hasn't added this title to any of their catalogs on the site yet, which is why it's not available for you to use. Another possibility is that maybe the publisher is not subscribed to CataList, so their catalogs and titles would not be in our system at this time. If you are creating your own list and you do happen to see that an ISBN is not in CataList, you could get in touch with us and you can email us, the CataList team, and our email is catalyst@booknetcanada.ca. You can email us, tell us that there's a title that you're trying to add to CataList, but it's just not there. You can let us know, and we can get in touch with the publisher so that they are aware that there are retailers looking for their titles on the site. So the first title that you are trying to add, which is not in CataList, it won't be added to your list, but the rest of the titles are okay. They will be included in your list, and you can click Next to continue, Next again. And your list is now created. And that takes you back to the My Page section of your account. And here you can see any catalogs that you have created yourself. So the list we just created is here, as well as the Valentine's Day catalog that we had created just earlier. So let's talk about the Valentine's Day catalog for another minute. Let's say you want more than 5 titles in this catalog. You want to find more titles related to Valentine's Day. And you can do that by using our search tools. So Valentine's Day, maybe you want to look for titles that are more romantic. So you want to look for titles that are in the romance genre. If that's the case, then you could always just type in romance in the search box and press enter to look for any titles that might have romance as a subject. On CataList, you can search for Bizac and Thema subjects, and that is what we are doing now. However, the quick search bar that we had just used, we can always search for other parameters. So I could search for a book's title, I can search for the contributor, publisher, imprint, any keywords that are associated with the book. All of those I can just type into the quick search box, and the site will look for any titles related to your search term. So our results have returned, and we can see the results in a scrolling view. So we can see the cover images, or we can switch to view these titles in a grid view. And this grid view is very similar to the one that you can access in a catalog. So let's say these results, there are a lot of results. If there are a lot of results, you can refine them using the tools on the left-hand side. Following the example that we're using, if we are looking for Valentine's Day titles that have Canadian contributors, then we can open up the contributor location option and look for any contributors that are located in Canada. So if we select that, it will narrow down the results a little more. We can also see just titles that are available as well. And that narrows our results a little further, and you can see these authors all have a maple leaf flag next to their name. So that indicates that they are Canadian. If the quick search and the refine tools does not give you a focused enough list for your purposes, you can also start an advanced search instead. So the advanced search, you could just expand the box at the top of the page, and you can use any of the parameters that are here to create your own search for your specific needs. You can also export your search results into Excel or CSV files as well. So if you want to add any of these titles to your list, you would simply have to click the Add to Catalog button here. And once you click it, you can choose one of the existing lists that you have. So I can add this to our Valentine's Day list. So I can add, and I can continue down the page, and I can add more as well. I can also add them to other lists or even create a new catalog. So that is how you can create catalogs and add titles to them. Just a quick check of the time. We have plenty of time. I also want to add a reminder here about distributors and orders and catalogs. And that is that when you are working in a catalog, whether it be one that you created yourself or one that was created by other people, you have to remember that the titles that you're adding to the order. So if you are working in a catalog and building an order using the titles in the catalog, you have to remember that the titles you add to the order should all have the same distributor. It's possible that catalogs include titles that are distributed by different companies, so you should take note of the distributor information when you are adding titles to your order. So let's go over the various areas of the site again of where you can find that information. So if we click on the link, we are taken back to our Valentine's Day catalog. And one of the areas of the site where you can see the distributor information is when you click on a title's details. On the left-hand side, under the supply detail box, you can see the distributor for this title. In this case, this is Orca Book Publishers. You can also see the distributor when you are in the grid view. And let's move over in the grid. So you can see the distributor under the Canadian supplier column. Again, if you don't have the supplier column in your grid yet, you can open up your customize column settings, go to the custom columns options, expand the supply data section, and here it is, the Canadian supplier option. And then you would just save your settings so that they can appear here. If you can also see the distributor information when you are viewing your order. So let's click on the order. And here you have in the table the distributor column. So I'm going to return to the catalog just for a second because there's something else I also wanted to talk about related to distributors. So let's say you are working on an order for UTP. So this is the order that we had just created earlier in the webinar. And we are adding titles to our UTP order. But let's say we come across a title that is distributed by another company, but we still want to add that book to an order so that we can purchase it for our store. So for example, if you wanted to add the Orca Book Publishers title to an order so that you can purchase it, you can't add it to your UTP order. So you can't add it here right now. What you have to do is create a new order that is specifically for Orca Book Publishers so that you can send it to Orca and not to UTP. And you can easily do that on Catalyst by switching your order. So in the order summary box where you see the More button, you can click on it and then change your order to your active Orca order. Now, we haven't created an order for Orca yet, so what you can do is start a new order. And we could call this, for example, Orca January 2024, and we can start the order. The page will refresh, and you can see in the summary box now that it has switched to the Orca order. So now you can add the Orca title to your Orca order. So I can add 3 copies of this title. You don't have to worry about your UTP order. It is still there. You could click the More again and change your order to UTP if you see other UTP titles that you would like to order. So I can click on UTP and the site will refresh again. And here it is, our UTP order. It is active once again, and with our 15 copies saved and ready for us to add more titles. All right, so this is the end of the demonstration portion of this webinar, and I will hand it back to Carol for the Q&A.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm going to send out a thank you to Nestor for putting a bunch of questions in. And don't ever, if anyone else has questions, please go down to the Q&A box and drop them in, and we'll try and get to as many as we can. Don't ever apologize for asking too many questions. We love to hear them, and if you've got a question, someone else probably has the same one. So I'm going to run through a couple of questions that we've got. And the first one is actually one of our FAQs that we brought with us, which is about the pack quantity or case quantity, carton quantity. Sometimes that's kind of interchangeable terminology that we see in the industry. So you will see oftentimes that we have the case quantity there or a pack quantity in the supply detail information. That is really mostly for the use of the larger accounts who where they're ordering in bulk, and that makes sense to just order by a case pack. So there isn't an expectation that smaller booksellers are ordering by case packs. People realize you're going to be ordering 1s, 2s, 3s, smaller quantities. Just the thing that I would keep in mind is that you often do need to meet an overall order minimum when you're submitting to a distributor. In some cases, a wholesaler can help you out there because you can order multiple distributors' titles at times from a single source to meet those minimums if meeting minimums is a problem for you. That's one use of the wholesalers in the marketplace. Otherwise, if you're keeping orders kind of the way Vivian showed, you can kind of just keep adding those titles into a UTP order or a Penguin Random House order or whoever you're going to send to until you get to that order minimum that you need. And kind of beyond that, that tags into that is prices shown on CataList. So are the prices that we're showing, that is a retail price, that is the consumer price that's usually printed on the book. So when you're talking to your distributors and figuring out the terms of your purchasing agreements with them, you'd have a discount that would be applied usually to that amount, that retail price amount. So something to keep in mind as well. I'm going to go, there's a couple of questions about CataList functionality here as well, so I'll jump on those. So the first question was on the welcome page dashboard, the main homepage for CataList. Is there an option to customize for specific genres and publishers? Publishers, yes. Genres, not yet. So on that one, when you're on the home page in CataList, there are a couple of tabs there where you're seeing all publishers, and then there's a tab when you're logged in, you can set favorite publishers. So you can set publishers on imprints. So if you're, for example, just looking for children's books, you can set just the children's publishers as your favorites, and then go onto that favorites tab to have all of the content on that homepage customized to the publishers that you normally purchase from. So that is, we have definitely talked about doing some genre limitations there, just a feature that hasn't been requested that much. So this is where getting questions from you guys is really helpful because we know what kind of things you're looking for. We love to get that kind of feedback. Another question we had was on a book's page, when I add a note on a title, is it publicly shown or only for me? I'll talk a little bit about the notes functionality. So if you put in a note, that is by default only available for you to read. There is, however, sharing functionality. So when you enter your note, there's a save button to just save it for you, and there's a share button to share it with other people. As retailers, you can share your notes to other people in your same account. So if you have multiple people who are working together and you want to put a note on something and make that available for someone else in your account to see, perhaps you're working together on lists of titles that you maybe want to put in your newsletter, that type of thing, and you want to add some notes on that, you can share those notes to other people in your account. And you can have multiple people in your account. There's no additional cost for that. It's like part of the free package that you guys get as retailers. You may also see, if you're working with sales reps, that note that they have shared notes to you. So you may see notes content there shared by the reps to you when you're logged in. So that's kind of the two pieces. You can have your own notes and you can also receive notes from those reps. Submitting an order to a sales rep. What does the sales rep see? So I'm not going to show it here, but I can talk about it a little bit more. So when you submit an order to a sales rep, they get a notification in the system. So in the main bar where you have your orders, like as you have my page and my orders, they also have a my orders page where all of their incoming orders will go to, and they get a notification button on that page. The system also does kick out an email to you and to the buyer. So you get a confirmation by email that with a link to the order and an Excel sheet of the order will go to both of you, both to yourself and to the rep, so that it goes to them, and you're copied on it. So you get a confirmation that that has been sent. I would just like remind or reinforce what Vivian is saying is make sure that your reps, this is the workflow that they're using. They're expecting to get orders in Catalyst. Because they will get an email, but then sometimes we'll get a question as why am I getting this order through this venue if they're not expecting it. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. And one last couple questions here. So on the left-hand side of the homepage, so where Vivian walked you through the list of publishers that you could scroll through, is there a way to distinguish publishers from wholesalers? So everyone that is on CataList, we have publishers and distributors in that list. There are no wholesalers per se in the list. The wholesalers don't really post catalogs in this way. They don't use CataList to post catalogs in the way that the publishers and distributors do. So we do, like for some of the bigger publishers, they will have their own page because they're doing their own catalogs, and they may be doing sales and promotions in different ways that require them to have full access and control in their catalogs. Some of the very smaller publishers will be all listed together via their distributor, UTP being one of those, but the literary press group will do catalogs for all of the publishers that they're representing. But for like wholesalers is sort of an outside of this. They're not really they're not listing a catalog, but you can just go to. So if you're interested in placing orders with wholesalers, usually they have kind of, they may have hot list, or they may have other tools where you're going to submit those orders. If you've got a list of titles that you're looking for, you may be able to export it from CataList if it's a list you got in our system, and just forward those to the wholesaler that you're considering making a purchase from, to either get a quote on price or check their availability, etc. On the right-hand side, widgets. Here's a question: what is NetGalley? So someone's looking at CataList right now. So if you're on the homepage in CataList, or if you are looking at books and you see a request at NetGalley button, NetGalley is a service that for advanced reading copies. So publishers, it's an external service that we just have an agreement with them. We get a list of the titles that they have galleys available for. So you would, if they have a galley available for a title on CataList, we will show that button, and that will link you through directly to the request page on their service for a digital galley, a digital advanced reading copy. And so we get that list updated daily. And when you are logged in, there is an option to kind of just like click on see what's available in NetGalley. That will launch a search that returns all of the titles that are currently available at NetGalley, with the link there that you can just click through to do that request. There are some other, for not all publishers participate in NetGalley, so you may see some publishers have enabled a direct request for advanced reading copies in CataList. So you will see, request an ARC for advanced reading copy. You can click that. The first time you fill in the box, your system will remember your settings as you go through, as you make other requests. And that is going to just really kick out an email to the publicity department, promotions department at the publisher, with the details of your request. So publishers do want to champion they do want retailers to champion their books. So you will see that most publishers either have galleys available through NetGalley, or many of them will also have a direct request. We have another question about what happens when I don't get the galley request. Should I ask my rep I would follow up with the rep. That would be probably my guess. I know the publishers do get a lot of requests, particularly, if you are working with a rep, they will often know there may be, it's been a long time since I worked at the publishing side, but I think galleys, digital ones are more common now. If you're looking for like print galleys, they're producing a lot less, is my understanding. So they may be out. They may have decided not to print them. Not every book may have a digital galley. We're working on a tool right now for children's books to be able to put the full PDF of children's books up, and with a whitelisting model in CataList. So we're looking at other ways of getting advanced copies to retailers. This is something that's definitely of interest to us and in our future development plans. And I think that is all of our questions now, and we're just about out of time too. So I'm going to wrap this one up. If we didn't get to your questions or you didn't have a chance to ask them, please do get in touch with us. Maybe we can advance the slide and we'll just put up our address again. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Yeah, we hope we've given you, some information, better information on how to use the system, given you some insight into the tools that you can use. So, we're always happy to hear from you, as I say, about what's working well, what could make the system better, or any general questions that you have. There is no such thing as too many questions. So contact our team, catalyst@booknetcanada.ca. If you're on the CataList site, we also have a contact us link at the bottom of every CataList webpage, so you can reach us there as well. We will be posting a recording of this session shortly, so you can share the link to that. Any of your peers or colleagues would be happy for you to pass that on if you think someone would get something out of this session. And if you enjoyed this webinar, we invite you to consider signing up for our Tech Forum session happening tomorrow. It's a retailer panel discussion called New Stores, New Views, and they'll be discussing how booksellers are adapting, engaging, and thriving. So that should be really interesting. And again, thanks for coming out, and have a great afternoon, everybody.